Hey everyone, how are you? It's Heather and Ashley from Canine Company, and we are here to talk to you today. Yesterday was Pet Obesity Day. I should say Pet Awareness. Obesity Awareness Day. We're not trying to encourage obesity with our pets.
Mm-mm.
In fact, we want just the opposite. So we're here to talk to you about diet and exercise and general wellness for your pets. So, Ashley, I know that you have had a big day today and that Cash misses you when you're away, and that um, I know that he's been begging for extra treats because my dogs have been as well. So, how do you
Mhm.
say no to that?
Oh, and he has a piercing blue eyes too, so it
Yes,
goes deep into your soul when it happens. So, biggest thing, don't cave in, guys. Don't cave in. I promise you, they are not hungry. They are just looking for that resource and they are seeing you as an opportunity to get those treats. And it's really important if you want to give them a food, to make sure that they're doing something and mentally stimulate them. And that will tie in to the exercise, right? Because Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, exercise when mentally stimulated is just as important as the physical side of it, right?
totally, totally. Because when you have a day that you can't get outside, whether it's the weather or just your schedule or whatever, get your dog's mind moving, get that hamster wheel running as fast as you can, because that mental stimulation and that thinking will really exhaust your dog. And if he needs to get out and run and it's just not the day or the time for it, do some obedience in the house to keep him, mentally healthy as well as physically healthy. And as Ashley mentioned, if you're going to give him treats, maybe cut back on the food a little bit
Mm-hmm.
that day. We have many clients right now that are in an obedience program with us, and we're making sure that the dog is not eating his normal breakfast and possibly lunch if he's a younger dog and dinner. We're cutting back on those a little bit because they're being supplemented with so many treats for positive reinforcement while they're learning. And we don't want to create a problem where we have a dog who's obese, because that can take a toll on their body and their joints and their ability to
Mm-hmm.
really function well. And we don't want our dogs to live in a pain-filled life at all.
No.
um, Getting out there and getting hiking or playing fetch with your dog, structured exercise is important. Just providing your dog with an open backyard to run, some dogs will take advantage of that, but some dogs, just you'd let them out the door and they look back at you like, are you coming? Like,
What
what
do
am I
I
supposed to do
do?
out here by myself?
There's
So
nothing to do out here.
yeah, exactly. I have a couple of favorite toys. One of my favorites is the flirt pole. I love the
Mm,
flirt pole. It's like, guys, picture like a cat toy, the little fishing line thing, except dog size. So the flirt pole is like 2.5 feet long. The rope on it is pretty sturdy, and then the toys are interchangeable at the end, and you can literally just twist it and play with it until your dog is running around in circles and jumping for it, and it's a lot of fun. Ashley, I know you have some favorites as well.
I personally like the flirt pole too, because let's be
Yeah.
honest, going over to your little toy bin and saying, I'm going to grab the flirt pole. It just sounds like,
Yeah.
ooh, what's that? So it's a lot of fun. I believe we talked about it too in our previous trainer talks, taking things that you normally wouldn't and making it something that can be fun. So if you have a rope toy, you can untwist it once again using maybe even pieces of the kibble as opposed to treat if those are higher in calorie, and making it a fun game for them to play. You could do the toy that wraps around the tree and they can tug against it for themselves if they're
Oh, that's a good one.
self-sustaining. I
Yeah.
love that one. Or
Hmm.
you can even tie it from the tree limb and it's like a tether ball. And I've seen dogs who will get 100 feet away, start from, and then they'll just jump and they'll bat it around and they'll go from the other side of the yard and do the same thing or hang from it. And then they're just spinning like this. I'm
Yes.
just picturing
Yes.
everybody driving by being like, what is that
What is
dog?
happening?
What's he?
Yeah. I trained a Dalmatian once that his toy was hung from a very sturdy tree branch, and it was above where he could reach, and he would jump up and hang from it for, strong grip, very
Mm-hmm.
good teeth, but he really enjoyed that. Oh, speaking of teeth, Ashley, we did have a question that came in from one of our viewers on Instagram about dental issues with teeth.
Mm,
I believe she had an older dog, and the question was along the lines of, my dog is 14. She has some periodontal issues, and
mm,
we've tried everything. We've tried brushing her teeth. The vet was, giving her a good regular professional cleaning, but now that she's 14, it's not recommended
yeah.
anymore because she's a little older. And apparently, I think she even said that the dog won't go for any of the water additives that are supposed to provide additional
Mhm.
fluoride and that things. I've tried that too. My dogs will go for one in particular, but don't quote me on the brand. I'm not ready to say that because I'm not sure which one it is that they like, but
Mhm.
they turn their nose up at it a little bit, and that's a tough one. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
So dental disease is extremely serious, and obviously you
Mhm.
should always consult your vet if you think that there's any issues with that. It can lead to heart disease, it can lead to lung issues and overall health conditions. So it's not just centered around the mouth. And a couple things you could take a look at is the type of food that you're being fed, if it's wet versus hard. Hard food sometimes can help break up some of that more material. Once again, check with your vet. There are certain kind of brushes, and I'm not quite sure for this particular instance. I know she said brushing the teeth wasn't as successful, but there are different kinds of shaped brushes. Personally, what I found very successful is the finger one, because it's not a long brush and then the pole part of the brush is hitting the rest of the teeth, and that makes it really awkward. But if it's your finger and you're kind of just like you're in
Yeah,
there, so you're
yeah.
able to better manipulate like with the areas you need to go. And we talked, I think, about this too at one of the other trainer talks, where it's that supplemented training. Like it's sequential. You're working on small bits at a time. So just being able to work on getting the brush close to the mouth, reward it, and then you reward it. So we're not creating this avoidance of, oh my gosh, the brush came out, this is a terrible time. And then you can gradually work up to being able to get it in the mouth, take it out, give a reward. And then you go a little closer and you do a little circle and you give a reward and you work your way up to that. There are some toys too that are, so if we're not taking the chewy treats, the ones that
Mhm.
help with the dental treats and are shaped to assist with that, there are certain type of toys that are structured and shaped to help break down some of that um, tartar that builds up.
Yeah, the
It's not,
calculus. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
so it's not going to be a cure all. It is something that if it's, if you play fetch, there's a certain shaped ball that helps with that. So it has these little grooves and these little like nubs for
Little
lack of
nubbies.
better
Yeah.
words, yeah,
Mhm.
so then
Mhm.
it helps to get in there. I apologize, my dog doesn't have teeth, so I personally am not going through, but we know understand it's a huge problem and it's very serious, and we're happy to hear that you are taking steps to ensure his health, and we want to be able to help you. So if you need more tips or advice, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll be here for you.
Yeah, it's very difficult with an older dog, and I have a 12-year-old border collie too, and she, one of the biggest issues is her breath. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, dog breath is that's kind of a misnomer. It's not really, dogs don't come with bad breath. That develops over time, or it's based on something that they just recently ate.
Mhm.
If they just had, something that's very stinky, then obviously they're going to have bad breath. But dog breath is actually your dog's breath should be fairly normal and reasonable to an extent. If they do have bad breath, that is the first sign of a bacterial,
Mhm.
inflammation. And if the uh, plaque builds up on their teeth, it makes their gums swell and it gets under their
Mhm.
gums. And that's why, as Ashley mentioned, there can be a real problem with internal issues, heart problems and lung issues because of that bacteria. And the bad breath is actually the bacteria that they're constantly
Mhm.
swallowing. So just like people chew gum to actually generate salivation, which is good for your teeth, it helps to clean your teeth. Dogs can chew on toys, as Ashley mentioned, and having a toy and licking too. Licking will
Mhm.
help to, if they have something that they can lick on, like a licky mat, which is a cute little silicone mat that you can put peanut butter or applesauce or something soft on. Licking will help to produce saliva as well. That helps to make that go away.
Mhm.
But yeah, the older dogs, they periodontal dental disease can happen as early as 2 or 3 years old if you're not
Mhm.
careful. And so getting on top of that very, very early in a dog's life and getting them used to, as Ashley mentioned, feeling what it feels like to have their teeth brushed and have their face touched like that is going to be super important. Yep,
Definitely.
awesome. So let's talk about pet obesity, shall we? Because those, we talked for a second about Cash's eyes, and they are piercing. They do look through your soul.
Mhm.
And then conversely, you have the big brown, the big hound eyes. They look up
Oh.
at you like, I haven't been fed in like 30 minutes, right? So
Mhm.
we need to make
Starving.
sure that as their caregivers, that we're doing what's right for them. Just because your dog asks for food does not mean he's hungry. Again, that is a resource seeking, activity. And if you give it to him, it's going to continue. There are some dogs who are very capable of self-regulation. A lot of northern breeds like Huskies and Malamutes, they
Mhm.
will eat what they need to survive to get through that day, and that's it. You get a lab, and it's very likely that they're going to eat until they pop. I mean, they will literally eat anything and everything. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter whether it's edible or not, it's going into their mouth, and that's dangerous as well, obviously.
In
But
5 seconds
certainly,
too.
yeah, yes, exactly. It doesn't take long. But certainly, it's very important to be aware that you need to know how much your dog should have for his breed, for his
Mhm.
age, for his size, and what the ideal weight is for your dog. He shouldn't be chunky. He shouldn't, and don't be afraid to have a dog who's lean and slim and
Mhm.
really, muscular. That's what they're supposed to look like. They're many dogs are bred to be very, very slim, and then people say, "Oh my gosh, he's underfed." No, no, no. He's very, very healthy. So,
A good test for that too, and it depends on the breed, because if it's a fluffier dog, you'll have a little bit harder time seeing this. But if your dog's standing and you're able to look over the top of them, it should be able to see the ribs. It goes in slightly at the hips and comes out, not too much. You'd be able to feel the ribs, but not see them. So that's we call it like a 3 out of 5 confirmation. And so if you find that that indent isn't there, and we're a little bit more sausage link side looking from the top view, that might be a sign. Talk to your vet, figure out the diet, maybe look at how many cups you're feeding per day, or how much exercise you're getting, because you can supplement one with the other, especially if it's a high calorie diet with no exercise. And then reverse, if it's too cut in, maybe we do need a higher calorie diet to supplement with that too. So maybe we're getting too much exercise, and I don't think there's ever such thing as too much exercise for a dog, but
mhm, mhm.
being able to take a look at that and supplement some in other foods that will be beneficial for the health. And I know, Heather, we were talking about this before, that breeds too. We were talking just like looking at the configuration, it depends on the size and the breed, but breeds play a big role in how we can exercise a dog, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to kind of know what you're getting into, when you get a dog. You have to know what they need from you. Some people kind of assume based on size or what they've seen on the internet that a dog can do, but dogs are, well, many breeds, many dogs are bred to do something. They have a job of some
Mhm.
kind. And so, there are some dogs that could easily wear a backpack and carry their own water bowl and carry their own food and all that kind of stuff that's really good for them. And there are some dogs that just because you're into marathon running and you want to run 5 miles a day, you're not necessarily going to bring your Chihuahua with you. Like that's just a little bit too much for what he's able to handle. So know what your dog needs and what is going to bring out the best in them. If you're going to get a very high energy dog, if you're going to get a border collie, don't expect them not to herd things. If you have a border collie and no sheep, but you have kids, guess
Oh.
who's getting nipped at the heel? You know what I mean? So they have this job, they need to do things, and certainly exercise and play can always be intertwined. It should be a fun thing for them to do. It really should be interactive, whether
Mhm.
it's fetch or I have a friend who has a zip line across their backyard, and just like you were saying before, Ashley, with the tetherball, and they
Mhm.
have toys on the zip line and they just zip them right to, and it's so much fun to watch the dog just take off. And he can do that by himself, but it's a lot more fun when there's somebody to push the toy for him so he can chase after it.
Definitely.
Mhm.
Definitely. And I believe we discussed on this a little bit, but we were talking about different ways to exercise the dog, and it really can be limitless. We were talking about ways in the yard. And correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like sometimes we have this vision in our heads. All right, I'm going to set the scene. The murky edges, we're in a dream world, and we're sitting on the couch and the dog's nice and calm next to us and we're loving them, right? Or we're in the backyard and the kids are playing and the dog's running nicely beside them, or we're walking and there's no pulling.
Yeah.
And that might be a reality, and that's great, and that might not be a reality for some,
Yep.
or it might be,
Mhm.
certain moments. And a tired dog is a happy dog.
True.
That's, it's a true statement. A tired dog is a happy dog. They're not going to be bored, and they're not going to get into anything to state that boredom. And so exercise is so important. You can achieve that dream if that's not a reality for you just yet.
Mhm.
And that 7 o'clock puppy zooms, we can channel it in the right way in order to be able to release that energy in a constructive method. So it's not tearing through the house and over the couch and over the chair and into the, the kitchen and sliding all around. You'll be able to redirect it into a couple sits or downs and be able to reinforce some of the behaviors that you already have, or be able to go for a walk nicely. And tied into that, actually, Heather, because exercise is so important. What are your thoughts on walking and allowing a dog to sniff and smell the roses? And
Um,
what do you
I
think?
think you know my pet peeves, Ashley. Um, so I've had so many clients who say, when I take my dog for a walk, I really don't feel like we accomplished much. He's not tired after. And we
Mhm.
went for 2 miles. I'm like, okay, well, how long did 2 miles take you? Because if we're stopping every 7 feet to, like you said, smell the roses or pee on something, that is not a walk for exercise. That's a
Mhm.
walk we're just walking around to check out the neighborhood and see who's been here and all those other dogs that are in the neighborhood. What have they been doing here? And you really want to have a route in mind, have a destination in mind, walk with purpose at a brisk pace to that destination, with your dog under control. And if you don't have that yet, trust me, you can get there. It's
Mhm.
it's it's not it's not a difficult thing to do. You may need a little assistance. We can certainly help you out. But once you get to your destination, then you can allow your dog more leash to go sniff and see who's been at the stop sign at Green Street and Smith Avenue. But then when they're done sniffing, it's time to get up and get that pace going again and get them really walking and get their heart rate up and your heart rate up. I mean, this is something that you guys do
Mhm.
together, and it's super important that they feel like they're being led somewhere, so that they feel like okay, we have a purpose, we're going somewhere, this is cool. Because you will get a very lazy dog if they're just able to stop and sniff every couple of feet. it's,
Mhm.
it's not it's not good for either of you.
You'll have just as much energy at the end. We did have a
Exactly.
couple questions come in, Heather.
Oh, cool. Great.
So we have Samantha. I think a lot of dogs become obese because they get too many table scraps. What do we recommend to help avoid begging at the dinner table?
Just don't do it. Don't don't
Don't
fall
cave
for it.
in, guys.
Yeah, don't
Don't do
cave
it.
in. Exactly. Yes, dogs will do whatever works. So if they have had good results from begging previously, then they will continue to.
Mhm.
Um, it's funny. It takes a lot less time to create a behavior like that than it does to make it go away.
Yep.
So one time that your dog sits at your side and looks up at you and says, "Hey, can I have that pizza crust?" The one time you give it to him, it's going to take you 10 times of not giving it to him before the nose gets out of your seat going, "Can I have
Mhm.
it again? Can I have it again? Can I have it again?" Just
Mhm.
ignore, right? If you need to redirect them to something more appropriate, like a Kong stuffed with something or a licky mat or maybe some crate time, that's fine. Total, or maybe some outside time
Mhm.
if they're, safely contained outside, that's fine. But begging at the table, if you give in once, you're going to pay for it for
Mhm.
a very long time.
And
Ignore.
and it's important to get everybody on the same page with that and
True.
your guests, because that one time you have people over and that guest gives that same behavior can occur.
Hmm.
And don't be surprised and don't give up either, because even if the behavior dims a little bit, there might be that moment where all of a sudden we're back to begging. Nobody gave him food, nothing happened. Maybe you're questioning everybody at the table, who did it, who gave him the pizza crust. But that can occur just as the check-in, like, well, it's been a couple days and I haven't begged and I haven't gotten anything. Maybe if I just look cute this one time.
Right. And it's about variables too. I mean, you
Mhm.
don't have pizza every night, at least hopefully not, right? But
I
if you
wish.
if you if you go to, Menino's every other Friday, then and the first time it happened on a Friday and it was Menino's pizza, you can get a good 2 week stretch of ignoring and no begging,
Mhm.
and then that pizza comes back in and it triggers it, oh, that's what I got before. It's that good smell, so that's maybe where your dog falls off the wagon for a moment, but just ignore it
Mhm.
again and it'll go away.
Yeah, that alternative behavior too is just so important. Don't
Hmm.
feed into it. Give them something else that they could successfully do. Our other question is from Erin. My dog is obsessed with fetch. She's 5 years old and loves it. But should I be worried when she gets older about any knee, ACL, hip issues down the road? If so, what can I do to avoid this? That's a great question. Um, I'm There are breed specific dogs who are a little more predisposed to hip issues and dysplasia, but it's always a concern for any dog. High impact exercises that can put a lot of pressure on the joints can always be a concern as well. There are supplements, glucosamine conjoint supplements that you can take, along with some omega-3s and 6. Once again, talk to your vet in terms of the proper dosage and which brand to recommend. But that stuff can help curb anything. And I know we talked, I know I keep referencing our other trainer talks, but I know we also mentioned sitting and how your dog sits. And you can start to pick up the signs if your pup is getting a little uncomfortable before, so you can address it before it becomes a major issue.
Mhm.
And exercising your dog is so important, but we also don't want to over exercise to the point where we are causing harm. Knowing when enough is enough, or when your dogs get sore just like we do. You bring your dog to the dog park for the first time ever, or the first time in a couple months, and he's running around and he's has a wind blowing in his hair and it's the grand old time. The next day, don't be surprised if he's a little stiff to get up or he's stretching a little bit more. He'll need that time to recoup a little bit. And maybe the next day you just go for more of a low-key walk as opposed to bringing him back to the park. So we do want to keep that in mind as to not cause more harm than good. But it's always something to be aware of. I mean, we love our pets. They're our babies. So if any first sign of anything, definitely go and seek the vet. But there are some things that we can do to assist with that, definitely.
Yeah, just like keeping track of what your terrain is, what kind of turf
Mm.
you're playing on. It's always best if you're going to play a vigorous game of catch to be on regular grass field. Just like football players, they do better on natural grass than they do on turf because turf is less forgiving. So, maybe if you're in a rocky area that's very, very dry and there's not a lot of grass, there's not a lot of moisture in the ground, avoid playing a game of fetch because your dog is going to be doing a lot of hard
Mhm.
braking, and that puts extra stress on the joints. Same thing with inside. I mean, if you're playing inside, there's a big difference between playing on a padded carpet
Mhm.
room than playing on a hardwood floor. Hardwood floor doesn't forgive as easily, and also it can be very slippery if your dog has the little furries, if he's got Grinch
The
toes,
socks.
right? So yeah, so if he's got Grinch toes and he slides along the hardwood floor, that's a recipe for hip and joint issues too if they kind of flail out from under him. So pay attention to where you're playing a game like that, and just like you would with a child, just like Ashley mentioned,
Mhm.
let them know when enough is enough.
So we have another question from Lulu. So she has a 1-year-old Frenchie and is stubborn about potty training. She knows she has to go potty outside, but decides not to. What can I do to limit the accidents inside?
Oh, that's a great question.
Hmm. So potty training can be tough. And I know, not Lulu, you're Lulu. Your Frenchie is 1 year old. And I don't know if you've had your whole life in terms of like from we're 8 weeks old or if you just rescued him. But taking a look in terms of the outside environment schedule is so important. And if we're having accidents inside, it's not a bad idea to just take a step back and almost pretend like your dog's a puppy again and reestablish that schedule of every X amount of hours needs to go out. Um, what other tips do you have, Heather?
If they haven't recently pottied outside, they should be in either a crate or a playpen in a confined area where there is the opportunity to play and lay down and enjoy some toys and stuff, but not to sneak off into a corner. And when I don't mean to use the word sneak as if the dog is maliciously trying to make your life miserable. That's not it. It's just, they'll go off into a corner where it's not noticed and it's not an area where they normally play, and you'll find an accident somewhere there. If you don't have complete potty training done, then your dog should have restricted access to the entirety of the
Mhm.
house. Also, make sure that when you do go outside to go potty, make sure that you're
Stella.
you're being very encouraging. Yes,
Mhm.
be your dog's cheerleader. Bring the treats outside, and go
Mhm.
outside. Pick a spot. Go to a place where you would like them to use as their restroom area, and just stand there with a 6-foot leash and try to be as still as a tree. Don't be engaging. Don't let them sniff around for the perfect spot outside of that 6-foot diameter. Just they have the leash area and that's it. Because what happens is when dogs go outside, there are so many interesting things out there, so many smells and sights and sounds. They get distracted. And like a toddler, they forget that they have to go because they're like, oh, this is so great out
Uh-huh.
here. And then what happens is they go back inside having not gone. And then they get bored because it's not as exciting inside. And they're like, Oh yeah, I
Oh.
had to go. That's right. Oh, uh-oh. So that's very important to be patient, stand as
Mhm.
still as possible. When they do go potty, good potty, go potty, give a treat right then and there. Then maybe allow some playtime. And when they do go inside, they can have some freedom.
The other thing too is if we were not having accidents before this time and now all of a sudden we are, do you want to make sure it's not something medically related, such as a
Yeah,
UTI or anything? So it's not out of the realm to say to talk to your vet as well. I know we're saying that a lot in this when it comes to wellness. There's, no risk is too great in that sense. You want to be
right.
able to talk to a professional who does understand health, to be able to address that in appropriate way if it does require medication.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Mm-hmm.
good question.
Yep.
Potty training is really tough. It can get pretty tough,
It can
but
get very tough. Yes. You just have to be very consistent, have a great schedule. Your feeding schedule is going to be very
mm-hmm,
important there too. How much are they eating? When are they eating? Are they grazing throughout the day? That's not a good idea.
mm-hmm,
Grazing throughout the day leads to potty training nightmares because you never know. Your dog is never actually full. Their consumption goes up this much instead of where it should be, and then they never actually fully eliminate because they just keep taking just a little bit at a time. So your feeding schedule should be, according to your vet and what your dog should be eating
mm-hmm.
throughout the course of the day in meals, like short meal times, 10, 15 minutes at a time, and then pick up whatever is left over so that there's not the ability to graze and to you know, get full. Now that doesn't go for water. Water stays down all day until about 2 hours before bedtime because everybody needs some water, especially in the warmer months, right?
So we did have a follow-up question tied to potty training.
Okay.
So Samantha's back. My 3-year-old still can't understand ringing the bell by the door to tell us she has to go. We live in a condo and she can't just open the door to let them out quickly. Any advice?
I love bells. But there are some dogs that just don't put two and two together right away.
Mm-hmm.
They really, and there are some that put them together so quickly that they're like, yeah, I'm going to ring the bell and go out. It doesn't mean I have to go potty. I just want to go
Nope, just
outside.
stand on the other side and wait
So
for
yeah,
you.
yeah. So communication with your dog or being able to understand when your dog is trying to communicate with you is key. You'll often see your dog stand at a doorway. There's likely something that she's doing that indicates she might not get the bell thing, just because maybe she has to touch it with her nose or her paw. It depends on what kind of bells you have, whether they're the jingle bell kind or the actual electronic, which I know that you've done a lot of recently with the electronic
Yes.
bells with the poke your nose on it.
The Mighty Paw. If you've
Yeah, those are
never
cool. Yep.
used it, it is so awesome. And not
Hmm.
to sound salesy or anything, we have it on our website, but it's so cool because you can hear it anywhere from the house.
Yep.
So you can be across the entire house in an office, door shut, and you will still hear that thing.
Hmm.
And it's
Hmm.
great. So you'll know.
And then one on the outside too to get let back
Correct.
in instead of sitting outside barking.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
scratching at the nice
It
finished door.
scratching it. Yeah.
Mm.
All the paint comes off. Yeah. It's a tough thing. It requires some patience and some understanding of what am I supposed to do to get out there? Like, what is it that you want from me? So being able to communicate using some positive reinforcement to get her to understand what the bells mean, just having the bells ring and the door open, or having the bells ring and you immediately show up. It's a tough thing to do and you have to be very consistent with it.
Definitely. Your pet's overall health is so important, and being observant of how your dog is feeling, being aware and knowledgeable of the breed, if there's anything specific that you can do to cater to it, being able to mentally and physically exercise your dog, it's so important to the happiness and well-being. And we can't stress it enough. If you need tips, suggestions, tricks, anything like that, please don't hesitate to call us. We are available not only for on site, but also virtual. We have plenty, dozens of certified trainers in all areas, pretty much. So we want to be able to assist you if you need us.
Mhm. Absolutely. Were there any other questions, Ash?
That was it. That's all we
Okay.
have for right now. But
Very
we're excited
good.
to be joining in a
Yeah.
future date. So stay tuned, guys.
That's right. We will be talking about the dangers that are presented with autumn, and especially with this holiday that we have coming up here, Halloween. So join us again on the 26th, and this one will be in the evening. I believe right around 7 o'clock, we're going to
Mhm.
get together and we're going to talk about how to keep your dog safe, from the dangers of fall and strangers on Halloween and all the spooky things that come along with that. So we'll see you
Ooh.
again soon. Thanks, Ash.
No, thank you, Heather. Bye,
Great.
guys.
Bye, guys.